The Colorado Avalanche continue to flex, and can you believe what went on at the NHL Draft Lottery on Tuesday? Welcome to NHL Wraparound Stanley Cupdate for Wednesday, May 6th, 2026. Vic Morren, Neil Smith, and before we get to that draft lottery, which really was something, you want to give a few words, not really tipping your hand on what you thought before we get into the game from last night? That's good enough.
I don't know what to say.
All right, then we'll tackle it more when we get there, but probably that's a precursor to what you're going to part with once we get to the lottery later in the show. So, Game 2, Colorado, Minnesota, and it's more Avalanche with a 5-2 win to take a 2-0 series lead. You know, Neil, the injuries that we are seeing from the Minnesota Wild really look like it's manifesting itself in a very big way. Joel Eriksson-Ek out, first-line player for them. He's got to be replaced by Ryan Hartman. Jonas Brodin is out. That's forcing Jake Middleton into the middle pair instead of the third pair. And also Zach Bogosian out. And the ripple effect that this is having is very noticeable.
It is, and I think there was more players hurt for Minnesota even last night. I noticed on watching the game a couple of guys that I thought, wow, he looks like he just got hurt. And, of course, one of them was very obvious when Matt Boldy took that huge check. If he wasn't hurt, then he was faking to try to get a penalty because, you know, all of a sudden you were worried about a stretcher having to come out onto the ice, and then all of a sudden he's back into play and stays on the ice. But you're right, they're hurting with those guys out of the lineup. It's not as bad as some teams that we've seen where they're really decimated. This team's just got a couple of guys out. With the 3 days off between now and when they play back in St. Paul, perhaps one or two of these guys can get back in the lineup.
You notice Boldy made that mad dash for the blue line just to try to stay on side after he was able to get up after absorbing that hit from McKinnon.
Yeah, and he did a baseball slide over the blue line to get his feet over. He went feet first because if your feet are over, that's all that matters, right?
That's right. So, but that happened at the end of the game. Let's go back to the beginning here because Philip Gustafsson getting his first start since April the 13th, leaving Jesper Wallstedt. They got hit for an 8th spot in game 1. Of course, the last goal coming into an empty net. Remember how I said I didn't think that there were going to be 15 goals scored in game number 2? Now, that wasn't exactly going out on a limb either. But after Marty Necas and Kirill Kaprizov scored 6 seconds apart within the first 3 minutes, I'm like, wow, here we go again.
Yeah, and I think the announcers were wondering, too, whether or not we were going to see another high-scoring game and just a track meet back and forth. The Necas goal was a beautiful goal, beautiful setup by McKinnon, and then a mistake, really, by Cale Makar. Unthinkable that he makes mistakes. But anyways, he went across the blue line, and that fed Kirill Kaprizov right down the middle on a breakaway. Boy, he just whistled it up into the corner 6 seconds after Necas had scored.
Didn't take long for the Avs to go back out in front at 8:24 on the power play. Nice one-touch passing play. Necas, McKinnon, Landeskog finishing it off. 2 goals on the first 2 shots against Gustafsson. And you could see those shoulders slumping right after that because here's a guy that comes in, it's his first game in over 3 weeks, and you're getting torched right off the bat.
Even at the other end, it was 3 goals on 4 shots total, and it was a 2-1 for Colorado at the time.
In the second period, it's Nick Waugh on the first shot of the second period for the Avs. Winds up scoring a goal to make it 3-1. But here's where the depth on defense really hurting the Wild. It's Jake Middleton, who tries to make an outlet pass up through the neutral zone. It gets picked off, and that leads to that goal. It's not that we want to pick on Middleton, but he's -4 in the first 2 games.
Probably playing more minutes than he should be playing because of the injuries. And, yeah, unfortunately for him, it was a bad turnover.
You know, Minnesota really thrived 5-on-5 in their opening round series against Dallas, only giving up 4 goals, and they've already given up 7 to this point against the Avalanche. And through 2 periods, it was still 3-1. I thought Minnesota had a strong start to that third period, and Scott Wedgwood making great stop on Kaprizov in close on the power play would have made it a 1-goal game. But then it's Nathan MacKinnon almost imposing his will on this series. And there was a really good interview that Eric Johnson of ESPN did between periods with MacKinnon. Of course, they won the Stanley Cup together in 2022. They had that long embrace on the ice after the final buzzer. But you could see, almost like Messier for you in 1994, that this is a guy that is trying to impose his will to put Colorado over the top. You already mentioned the hit on Boldy, and then before that, he had a big hit on Quinn Hughes. So you watch this guy play, and everything is out on the table for him.
No, I mean, that quote that I said back in 2022 or whenever it was, this guy'd rather die than lose. I mean, that's the way he plays. He reminds me of Mess every time I watch him play because he does try to impose his will. He's a big, strong centerman that just basically knocks down everybody in front of him. And that hit on Hughes, to be able to hit Quinn Hughes is one thing. I mean, he's like a fly in a room, and you're trying to swat it down with your hand. And I mean, MacKinnon caught him. And then that was a big hit on Boldy that we've already talked about. So, yeah, MacKinnon was very evident in this game.
Squared up both of those guys so well. And, of course, coming back against the Avalanche is such a daunting task because they're 44-0 this season when leading after 2 periods. And one of the things that we had talked about all season, not that Colorado couldn't defend, but that was going to be proven in these playoffs after they fell to Dallas in the opening round and blew that 2-0 lead in Game 7 last year. But no problem here. And it's MacKinnon making the score sheet with 6:42 left. He does it on all parts of the ice.
He sure does. And that was a blast on the power play that he scored on, and basically sort of punctuating the whole night and saying, okay, everybody, we've got this. And MacKinnon is the guy that puts that punctuation mark on it.
A goal and 2 assists on the night for MacKinnon. Marcus Johansson did pull the Wild to within 4-2 with 5:27 left shortly after the MacKinnon goal. But the Wild took 3 consecutive penalties in the last 12 and a half minutes of the game, obviously showing frustration here. None of these penalties were particularly good.
No, but that's what you get in the playoffs, right? Teams are very, very frustrated. You now have the daunting task of heading back home, knowing that you've got to win 4 of the next 5 possible games you play against Colorado. So, I mean, that is a daunting thought.
Val Nichushkin wrapped up the scoring with an empty net goal with 5 seconds left. And as you'd mentioned before, Neil, perhaps Minnesota gets 1, 2, or all 3 of those players back that we started at the beginning of the segment. That third game, an extra day in between. So there's actually 3 days now in between games 2 and 3. That'll take place in Minnesota, 9 o'clock Saturday on TNT. So the Wednesday schedule, the last series to get started in the second round, Montreal at Buffalo, 7 o'clock, TNT. Word coming out Tuesday that Sam Carrick for the Sabres might be available sooner than later for Lindy Ruff's Sabres. He suffered an arm injury in a fight with Anders Lee on March 31st. Noah Auston not expected to play for the series. And it looks like Ruff is going to stick with Alex Lyon, and he will go up against Jakub Dobeš in what is going to be a very intriguing battle in this series.
Well, it will be, and Dobeš was so good in the previous round that he looked unbeatable. So we'll have to see what Buffalo can throw at him. Alex Lyon's been around for a long time. We've seen him play, and he's been good for Buffalo so far as well. You got to get good goaltending to win in the playoffs, and these 2 teams are getting that right now.
The later game at 9:30, also on TNT, Anaheim and Vegas Game 2 with the Golden Knights holding a 1-0 series lead. Real hard-fought victory in Game 1 for Vegas, but I thought both teams really should have been pleased with what they delivered in the first game.
Yeah, I think so. I think that this is going to be a longer series. I think if we can judge anything by game one, I don't think this is going to be a short series. I think that Anaheim could have won this game. Vegas did end up winning it, but that's just the way it goes. I was very impressed with Anaheim.
Save for that missed icing call that I think we both agree on, which became the determining factor late in the third period of that first game.
Absolutely. You know, it's bad luck. It's something that Anaheim can't control.
It's human error.
It's a mistake made by the linesman, as far as I'm concerned. It should have been icing, and that would have put the puck all the way down in the Vegas zone, and that turnover wouldn't have happened, which led right to that goal. But you know what? There's human error involved in hockey, and this was one of them.
So you're going to make a pick for the two games for tonight. And, of course, you had Colorado last night. I had Minnesota. So now that we have that behind us, who you got winning tonight?
I'm going to go with Buffalo and Anaheim.
Now we're going to have some fun here. I'm going to go exactly the opposite, and I'm going to go Montreal and Vegas.
Okay.
All right. Oof. Let's drop the gloves here, big guy. Some other news from around the league. Tampa Bay Lightning captain Victor Hedman released a statement confirming that he missed the final 22 games of the season, including all 7 in that opening round series with Montreal, in order to focus on his mental health. His last game was March 19th at Vancouver, and he left that game. He did skate with the team during the opening round of the playoffs, but never made it back in the lineup. But, Neil, your wife works in mental health, and we also know how important this subject is to you.
Well, it's very important. Mental health is something that luckily now is being talked more about. People are being more open about it. Thank God for Victor Hedman and him bringing this up. Maybe this will make other people feel free to let people know how they are feeling mentally, if they're depressed, if they're feeling anxiety, if they're ruminating, whatever the case may be. I'm very proud of Victor Hedman. I don't know him, but I'm very proud of the fact that he came out and did this, said this. I wish he would have played in the playoffs because that would have helped Tampa, but I don't blame him whatsoever for taking himself out if he didn't think he could play at his level. And again, we wish him all the good wishes in the world to get back to the place he needs to be in his own mental state.
And he has said he's in a much better place right now. And I think so often people just take for granted that we see these athletes out there and they just go out and perform. But there is so much going on in everybody's life between personal, your team, you know, dealing with injuries, dealing with the kids, dealing with the wife. And I think so many people take that for granted. And that's really what should be first and foremost. Hockey is just a game. It's just entertainment.
Well, the thing that really bothers me is when people say, well, what has he got to be depressed about? Look at all the money he's got. As if that's going to help your mental state, as if that's something that you're going to look at your bank account and say, oh, I'm thrilled. I'm just so happy. Everything is great because I've got so many digits in my bank account. I mean, and then people will say, well, what's he got to be down about? He's captain of the Lightning. He's making tons of money, this, that. I hate all those things. Depression and mental problems can come in to people at the highest level of society and people at the lowest level of society. And it really doesn't have anything to do with your economic situation. It has to do with the things you said that are important to you, that are going on in your life, the things that are confusing you, perhaps things that we wouldn't even understand. But that's why you get a therapist who does have experience with all kinds of different situations that humans can come up with. And again, all the best wishes to get himself back to where he was, and give him a big shout out for being somebody who will admit to having some issues going on. There's no shame in having issues mentally. There's no shame in that. We all have it. We all go through it. And the more we talk about it, the better it'll be for other people.
Well said. Late on Tuesday, came out that Canucks president of hockey operations, Jim Rutherford, will be stepping down and moving into an advisory role with the team after the NHL draft. He has held this title since December of 2021. And of course, the team fired general manager Patrick Alvin on April 17th after the last place finish in the overall standings, which of course dovetails into our discussion about the NHL Draft Lottery, because the Canucks entered that with the greatest chance to get the first overall pick, which is expected to be Gavin McKenna out of Penn State. And look what happened after the, let's just say, controversial hiring John Chayka, Matt Sundin, to lead Toronto Maple Leafs. The Leafs move from 5th place and win the lottery. You could not make this up.
No, you go from a debacle one day to euphoria the next day. What can you say? I mean, this is the second year in a row, and I've said this to you yesterday, that the general manager of the team that wins the lottery and gets the first pick has a star player dropped in his lap, just dropped in your lap to start your term with the team. So last year, Matthew Schaefer was dropped into Matthew Darch's lap. Everybody was going to pick him first if they had won the lottery. This year, I assume, and you assume, it's going to be Gavin McKinnon. He's going to be dropped into Chayka's lap, although I'm sure Chayka will say that he's been scouting him for years and knows everything about him, knows his family, knows all his relatives, and has done deep background checks on him.
What are you saying?
I'm just saying that he has a good amount of imagination. So, yeah, Toronto gets us. This is the first time that they have had the first overall pick since
Auston Matthews. And I actually wanted to ask you a question here regarding that, because Matthews has 2 years left on his deal. And let's just say that Matthews is playing at, a decent level. Let's say a 40-goal level. And he's also continuing to deal with nagging injuries. And McKenna winds up really becoming a star player in this league. Can you see Matthews getting moved before the end of the expiration of his contract?
Oh, I can. If he tells him he's not re-signing there, then he is going to get... Wait a minute. I'm talking about this Toronto Maple Leafs now. With a normal situation, if a player said they were not going to re-sign with you, you would move the player to another team to get back other players and not lose that asset for nothing. But now we are talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs, so God only knows what they will do in any situation now. I don't think that the first overall pick will have anything to do with the way Auston Matthews decides on his own future.
But does McKenna, assuming that he is picked, and I don't think the Maple Leafs can not pick him. Does he replace Mitch Marner and the core four is reborn?
Well, I don't think he's ready to do that. And there's nobody I've talked to that says that Gavin McKenna is a sure starter in the NHL next year. I don't think this is Matthew Schaefer. And that's only from people I've talked to. That's not from my eyes watching him. Maybe down the road he can replace him, but I'm sure he won't be replacing him this coming season.
Good enough. San Jose moves from 9th to the number 2 position. So the Sharks in a spot here where they're going to continue to load up on star quality players. If McKenna goes to the Maple Leafs, then they will be likely to pick Ivar Stenberg, forward that's playing for Frölunda in Sweden, or defenseman Albert Smits, who played for Latvia at the 2026 Olympics and plays in the top division in Finland currently, and has been said by some that he may be the most NHL-ready player in this draft.
On the subject of San Jose and who they're going to pick, have you ever seen a less overly enthusiastic general manager than Mike Greer last night when they interviewed him after that?
Oh, yeah.
Now, Mike Greer politely and respectfully turned down coming on NHL Wraparound podcast.
Right.
Now I know why. He is so uncomfortable in front of the media. You could see that last night when they went to him and said, wow, you just moved up to second again with all the young players you've got. What do you think? How do you feel? And well, it's good. We've got our scouts have been out there and we I felt bad for him. He looked like he just hated being in front of that camera. However, having said that, look out, everybody. 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years from now, San Jose, they're a-coming.
Loading up. Big steps this year. And, of course, I think no reason to think that this little train is going to stop moving. The other picks to round out the top 5 or 6, Vancouver drops from 1st to 3rd. Chicago drops from 2nd to 4th. The Rangers drop from 3rd to 5th. Obviously, this is all a byproduct of Toronto and San Jose picking 1-2 now. And the Calgary Flames, who started with the 4th greatest odds, drop to 6th. So we see these prospects that are going to be coming up, and perhaps one of them will be Calder Trophy winner or candidate in 26-27. But the finalists for this year were announced on Tuesday. Ivan Demidov, the Montreal Canadiens, aforementioned Matthew Schaefer of the New York Islanders, and Beckett Seneca of the Anaheim Ducks. So, Neil, would you like to offer your early prediction on who's going to win this?
It's more than a prediction. It's locked in, and Matthew Schaefer will win this year's Calder Trophy. Demidov is a very good young player from Montreal, deserves consideration, and Beckett Seneca has just come out of nowhere. I mean, he was shocked when he got picked where he did by Anaheim at the draft that year. But Matthew Schaefer this season just was out of, it was unworldly. He was just fantastic for the Islanders and is going to have a great future, has a great future right now.
And I think you've also got to put more stock in the fact that he's a defenseman. And the acclamation for a defenseman is far more intensified than that for forwards.
It doesn't take memory to go back too far to 1988-89 when Brian Leetch broke in with the New York Rangers and scored 23 goals. And if Matthew Schaefer is going to be anywhere close to Brian Leetch, I mean, Brian won 2 Norris trophies, and he won the Calder Trophy, and he won the Stanley Cup, and he won the Conn Smythe Trophy. I mean, Schaefer is the real deal.
And, of course, tying Brian Leetch for that rookie record this past season with 23 goals. Reach us individually at Neil at NHLWraparound.com or Vic at NHLWraparound.com. We're on all podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and YouTube. So leave a review, or please, if you're tuning in on YouTube, subscribe. We're at 850 subscribers right now. You can also find us on X, Instagram, TikTok at RayD8.tv, and Buzzer, BZZR.com. Our website, NHLWraparound.com. And yesterday, we reached out to potential advertisers to grab a franchise that is not NHL Wraparound, but any of the other franchises that we have, or you could have a segment within NHL Wraparound. Something that I want to share with folks, we are going to be bringing a lot of our content live next season. We're just working out the logistics to do that for 26-27. So that's going to be a real exciting time for us, Neil, and just another piece of our evolution.
Yeah, and I'm going to be excited about taking this live. It's going to be really a lot of fun, and it doesn't mean we'll have to be in the same room, Vic, so don't worry about it. We can do it live, and you can stay in Connecticut, and I can stay in South Carolina. But it's going to be a different product for the listeners and for the viewers.
Our latest spring cleaning dropped on Tuesday, and that was the LA Kings. Pittsburgh dropping on Wednesday, and either Thursday or Friday, it'll be the Dallas Stars. So, on behalf of Neil, I'm Vic. Join us again for Stanley Cupdate on Thursday.